I'd like to call to order this committee of the whole meeting of the town of Saugeen Shores and extend a welcome to everyone in the chambers this evening. The first order of business is a declaration of pecuniary interest, and I'll remind every member of your responsibility to do so. Do so now or when it arises on the agenda. Excuse me. We have none declare, then we have no additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda. And the next item on the agenda is delegations, and this evening we have one delegation. It's Mr. John Mann, and he's here about the station lease. Welcome, John, and the podium's yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm here on the station lease. I thought it would be on the docket today, but apparently it didn't make it. I don't understand that. But in any event, as you know from my last 3-minute presentation, I'm a huge fan of the station. I'm a huge fan of Andy Hess, who I think is an iconic owner and makes the beach a fun place. He's the ambassador of the beach in my estimation. Goodwill, unsurpassed, and priceless. The train that he runs and owns is iconic, world-class, the scenery unparalleled. The mini golf, unparalleled. What he serves at the station, unparalleled. So I'm hoping that you will just give them the 5-year lease. From the information report, I note that the information report indicates, despite some efforts by the service owner partner, the building and property have aged in appearance and no longer meet current aesthetics appropriate for the town's most significant tourist attraction. I strongly disagree with that assessment. I think aesthetically it's perfect. I think it's not an aged-looking building. I just went by it today. I actually walked by it. Painted nicely. Looks like a train station. It's just spectacular. I frankly don't know where that came from. I mentioned this to town staff a couple weeks ago, and was told, well, that's my opinion. Well, you're darn right it's my opinion. I'm a citizen, and my opinion counts. But in my view, citizens have not had much say here. You work for us. When I have something to say, I expect council not to maybe agree with me, but to discuss it, to review it, consider it, and tell me why, yes or no, you agree with me. It's a cornerstone of our democracy. It's the cornerstone to the foundation of our democracy for me to stand here today and any time, or any citizen, to address and communicate with my elected officials who work for us, public servants. We run the show, and it never happens. So I look for, so town staff says, well, it's my opinion. Well, certainly it's my opinion. Doesn't it count? Well, later, the town provided the information report, having heard my comments about this train station, and didn't include my comments. Now, how fair and balanced is that? This information report that I just addressed is totally negative. There's not one positive thing about it. Generations of people have loved going to this train station and think the world of it. And not one good thing to say about it. And then the information report says they received an unsolicited proposal late in 2016 to repurpose the station building and surrounding land uses. Well, unsolicited proposal, who was it? What was the proposal? Why don't citizens get to know this? Staff gets to know it, citizens don't? I don't know. That doesn't sound very good to me. And then it says, the proposal has merit. Says who? The staff? However, has not been compared to any other proposals, and staff believe it presents some risk to achieve for 2017 implementation without any significant public consultation. That really caught my eye. Public consultation. I'm thinking, what's wrong with this? Public consultation is non-existent in this town, in my view. It's not existent in the province, it's not existent in the federal. all levels. And the DGR is the reason I say that. So there's going to be some public consultation in the next year. Well, so what? They've already made their decision. They said this looks, the building's aged, it doesn't meet its current aesthetics. It's going to pass. There's nothing we can do about it. Citizens can't have anything to say about it. The current leaseholder will have the opportunity to participate if he desires. Good luck. You should never treat somebody like that. 30 years he's been working here. To treat a leaseholder, a tenant like that, shameful in my view. Particularly with the goodwill that he has distributed in this town. So, and then it says, staff is cognizant that in order to achieve the goals envisioned, a 10 to 20-year commitment will be required. So no longer is it 5 years, it's 10 to 20. Where does that come from? Must be the new proposal. He must want, or she must want 10 years at least, and not the 5-year traditional. And that's the town information report. But on the beach, the CAO, David Smith, says the town should always be checking occasionally on its lease agreements throughout the municipality to make sure taxpayers are getting best value from public assets. Well, how does that relate to it extending it 10 to 20 years now? Is that what he means by occasional, look at it occasionally? When 5 years not good enough anymore? And what happened in the past few months? All of a sudden, hey, we got to throw this into a lottery system? And how many people are really going to be voting on this thing? Or throwing a proposal in? The unsolicited person's going to, obviously. He's got the front-running seat right now. So here's somebody 30 years. Hey, we got somebody we like better. He gets it? You shouldn't treat people like that. Maybe Donald Trump treats people like that in his business. But this town doesn't, in my view. So, and then I get to confirmation bias. So the town has gone out on a limb and said, this thing doesn't look right, the aesthetics are not good, it's an aged building, we need something new. We got a proposal that has merit. They've already made that determination. So everything they do from here on in is confirmation bias, in quotes, meaning they're going to confirm what they've already determined, that it has merit and the other is not being done properly. And Justice Gouge in his report on this type of thing says confirmation bias has no weight, nothing. So citizens will have no weight in what this should do, and the staff will run the show. Well, I didn't vote for the staff. I voted for my elected officials, and the elected officials should do something. Yet, in my understanding is there's no debate. You don't debate these things. I can't stand up here and debate with you. I can't answer any of your questions. I can't ask you questions after I do my delegation, even though it's my constitutional right to be able to do so, the cornerstone of our democracy. I can't say enough bad things about citizens' rights on this thing. So the confirmation bias is done. I'm hoping that you will not treat Doug, Andy Hess like this, or anybody for that matter, who's worked 30 years and has a wonderful business like this. So, and I'm hoping you will debate it and discuss it and give him 5 years and continue on, because I don't see any reason on this unbalanced report. There's got to be pros and cons, and talk to everybody. Talk to people that actually use it. I got to say I'm very biased on it, but and I heard let's get a restaurant down there. That's fine. But don't use the train station to do it. Don't take away the train. Don't take away the mini golf. In my view, keep alcohol off the beach. I'm not anti-alcohol, as I said. I had a career out of alcohol. But it doesn't need to be on the beach. I don't want people driving on the beach after having alcohol. I've had enough of that in my career. Government gives you alcohol, then they arrest you for using it. So I'm hoping that you will debate these things, you will allow citizens to have input, and you will at least consider it, review it, tell us why you're accepting it or not, and treat Andy Hess and any person that has done the goodwill that he has with the respect he deserves, and allow him to continue his fine station. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. Any questions for Mr. Mann? Councillor Minaj.
I don't know if they're all questions, Mr. Mayor, and you may have to give me some latitude here, but I'd certainly like to respond to John and his request for a democratic debate. And I know that I'm only one person on this board of directors and this team here, but I have some opinions about the waterfront as well. And spent 2 plus years from 2011 to 2013 and change, discussing with the public at open public meetings, surveys, and they came in their hundreds to discuss Port Elgin Main Beach. And they said it didn't serve the purposes anymore, not the way it looked and not the way it was framed, and they wanted change. And that's all documented. So I agree with you 100% that Andy Hess and his good wife are ambassadors of our beach. And that you can't buy. The way he smiles when the kids get on the train, that's something special. But I don't agree with you on the mini golf, so let's just leave that alone, because I think that mini golf needs a lot of work and a lot of help, and that's a prime piece of real estate that should be repurposed, in my opinion. And we have plans that say and support that it could be repurposed and how it would be. So you know that train has been around longer than Andy, and it's been in more than one location, and it's also it's been out of service in the past as well. So it's not something that anybody would want to stand up, and I don't, and say we don't want the train. We certainly do want the train. And one of my other points for you is that it's about all of that beach, right? That's what we were talking about earlier. It's about the beach house. It's about the washrooms. It's about the old tennis courts where the flea market goes. It's about the mini golf. It's about the boardwalk. It's about that whole package, Port Elgin Main Beach, and we're trying to effect some change based on feedback. Staff take direction from us, and you said that, and we discuss with staff what that kind of direction could be and should be, and to openly debate and discuss the business arrangement between the municipality and a leasee of property on the beach. You think that should be aired out in a public meeting? Probably. I don't agree that it should. I think that maybe you're misinformed, that we have reached out to Andy and asked him to come in and discuss the future. So it's not quite the way it's being painted tonight. And I want everybody to know that. Not just your opinion. Now I got my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
My understanding is he didn't know about this till I told him.
Okay, thanks. That was just a statement. I don't think there was any question there, John. Any further questions or I'll start here with Councillor Rich.
Thank you for your deputation, John. I have one quick question through you, Mr. Mayor. Jane, when is the lease? How much do we get paid per year for that lease? Do you know off the top of your head?
I would be guessing if I told you the exact amount right now. I'd have to look that up for you. We've got multiple leases at the waterfront, as you can imagine.
So I guess
I think the CAO can speak to it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have the exact number either, but I think it's about $3,500 plus or minus for the annual lease.
Right. So I guess my point, John, is that he's been able to run a profitable business on our property for the cost of $3,500 a year for quite some time, and a successful business. Are you aware that that business has been for sale for the last few years? The person that's the ambassador was trying to sell it to somebody else?
I'm aware it was for sale, yeah.
Yeah. So that tells me that he's willing to have a change, or he's interested in changing. And if we own property and we lease it to someone, just like I own property and I lease it to businesses, when the end of the lease comes, we have the opportunity to see what the vision of that property is. And I don't think that there's any problem with debating it. And I welcome you to come in and give your opinion on the property. But in order for it to stay there for a prolonged period of time, in my opinion, we have to make sure that we take advantage of that property in the best way possible and make sure that it's refreshed and becomes a tourist destination that I would like to see it be.
Thank you.
Saugeen Shores uses it on all their brochures. It's front and center.
Again, I think that was a statement and not a question, John. Go to Councillor Mike Meyer.
I still should have an opportunity to say something about it.
Thank you for your presentation, John. And last meeting, I made a statement that I feel it's extremely important. That I think was quoted in the media that I felt was very important to maintain the train service at Port Algo Waterfront. And I still maintain that train service should absolutely remain. But John, I'm a little disappointed in one of the comments you made tonight. Over the years, I've taken a lot of pride in this, and you made a statement earlier. I tried to write down. You were speaking about, a closed council, not open for discussion items, and I just want to comment on one thing about not being an open council, open and transparent. Back in 2004, we had wonderful community consultation, open meetings, open forums to develop a Parks and Trails master plan. We had in 2011-12, we had wonderful turnouts, public discussion, open forums around a waterfront master plan. We had some wonderful turnouts, open discussion, open forums when we did the Southampton Town Hall redevelopment program. Just recently, the Emerald Ash Board, unfortunately losing 500 trees at Fairy Lake, called public meetings, advertised, good turnout at a public meeting. Public had some say in what should happen with the Emerald Ash Borer trees, and I've written five others. But John, I guess we don't want to enter too much of a debate here tonight, John. But that was one comment. Councillor Grayson and I moved and seconded a motion a year ago. In some parts of you don't agree with the open forum, the 3-minute being posted on the board and so on and so forth, John. But one of the things we talked about, openness and transparency and providing opportunities for the public to come in and talk to council. I know you don't like the format. There's not much feedback from the 3 minutes, but we've got 5 presentations on a one given night, which we have for 3 minutes. It's all the time we have before a council meeting. At least we implemented that change. I think this council has really tried to be open to the community, John, and create dialogue. Maybe it's not as open
Mike,
as this
you
one.
just need meaningful in that.
John, nobody interrupted you. Please don't interrupt anybody here.
Finish, John. I'm just saying, you use meaningful, but there have been really meaningful open public meetings around this council too, and not only when I was a staff member, but as a council member. So I take offense to that comment, and I take a lot of pride in the fact that we've opened our doors and tried to be open and having meaningful discussion with people at public meetings and open forums. So I was disappointed with that comment, but thank you, John, for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Any further questions for Mr. or comments? If not, thank you, Mr. Mann.
Well, my point on meaningful, though, is meaningful consultation, meaning you take our...
John, that wasn't a question. Very briefly.
If a citizen comes here, in my view, they would like the council to discuss what he or she just said and to say, what they think about it. That doesn't happen.
I think you made that point in your deputation, John.
That's what I mean,
thank you.
meaningful versus consultation. Just, I could talk to the wall, too. That's consultation. But meaningful means how is it used, how is it considered? That is missing.
Thank you, Mr. Mann.
Thank you.
No, sorry, Joan, you need to be on the agenda, sorry. No. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. Sorry, yeah. When you speak, we're having difficulty hearing you, so make sure you're close to the mic. I apologize for that, Joan. I know you've told me that before, so when anybody speaks, please make sure you're close to the mic. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is a general government, it's a public notice staff report, and it has to do with our 2017 budget. And our Treasurer Sue Dent will present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following the capital and operating budget reviews, staff has made several changes to the budget as directed by council. I'm not going to read through the entire list. They are all there in the report for you, as well as how they are to be funded. I have also listed there some of the adjustments that were made on the revenue side to help cover some of these additional costs. The biggest one being a reduction to the bridge reserve transfer. This does bring us in with a proposed tax levy increase exactly where we started at the beginning of the process at 4.04%.
Thank you, Sue. There's a recommendation. I'll read the whole recommendation. The recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Saugeen Shores approves the municipal budget for the year 2017 as follows. Expenditures for operating and reserves will be $25,535,029. Capital will be $15,591,105 for a total of $41,126,134. That's based on revenues of operating and reserves of $14,154,688, capital of $14,391,605 for a total 2017 budget of $28,546,293. And again, the total municipal taxation will be for operating and reserves $11,380,341, capital of $1,199,500, for a total 2016 budget of $12,579,841. Further, that the Town of Saugeen Shores tax levy be set at $12,579,841 to finance the operating and capital budgets of the municipality for the year 2017. This levy includes growth of $116,000 or 0.097%, and a levy increase of $484,002 or 4.04%. That the BIA levies for 2017 be set at $33,000 for the Port Elgin BIA and $29,350 for the Southampton BIA, and that the tax levy bylaw establishing the 2017 tax rates be considered by council at a future date. Any discussion? Questions? Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple of questions. One with regard to the report, I guess, and one with regard to one of the schedules. Sue, I wondered if you could give us an update, if we have an update on the status of the year-end 2016. How do we have we generated an operating surplus or deficit, and a capital surplus or deficit? Do we know?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was expecting the question. I did have a look at it, but we are still very early in 2017. We still have a large number of invoices that I know we have not received, and there's still a lot of year-end entries that need to be posted. So at this point, I believe it would be premature to say one way or the other. I would expect a slight surplus on the operating side. Capital will be, I'm anticipating, will be closer to an even budget. But I don't have any definite numbers yet and won't for several weeks.
So we may not even have it before we pass the 2017 budget finally? Is that Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And my other question with regard to the schedule, it was just a point of, a very minor point, I suppose, a clarification, but I wanted to put it out there. There's the list of capital projects in progress, Schedule C, and I just didn't see the schedule. I didn't see any mention of the Port Elgin Gateway signs in there, and I know the Director of Community Services is here. I just wondered if I could ask if we could, I mean, perhaps I missed it in here. If it isn't here, I apologize. If it's not, could we get an update on the status?
I think they were in the last year's budget, so they were included in last year's budget.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, it is on that schedule.
Does it carry forward?
It is close to the end on the last page. Does show that our current actual project cost to date is $58,000.
That we have spent, or that?
That we have spent, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sue, I just have one question, and it's on the investment income on Schedule A. Am I reading it right that it indicates that we had a decrease in our investment income by $14,000, $14,600 approximately?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it looks that way, yes, but that is entirely due to the fact that our local improvement interest is included in that total, and a large number of those loans are continuing to be paid off. So we're actually seeing a $50,000 decrease in our local improvement interest in 2017, and has been made up by an increase in our other investment income to reduce that shortfall to $14,000.
I'm just going to ask, can everyone in the room still hear very well there? Can you hear back there now? Okay, I just want to make sure that you're hearing all right. Any further questions? Councillor Mike Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, under Schedule C, there is one item in there recommended for 2017, and that's police. It just says police, $5.3 million roughly, $5,294,000. And I just needed to receive, I just need to hear some assurances this evening that that item is being, if approved this evening, it's being recommended $5.3 million. I don't know what that's for, whether that's for a new build or whether it's a renovation expansion to the building. I have not heard near enough information yet for my opinion whether it should be renovation expansion or a new build. So I just wanted to hear from our, perhaps you, Mr. Mayor, through you to our CEO, just to clarify in public where we're at with that $5.3 million roughly under police. There's nothing where it indicates new build or renovation expansion. So, Mr. CEO, David, could you just verify for me that that is being approved this evening as a placeholder only, or what are we actually approving this evening? Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for the question. Through you, Mr. Mayor, when we went through the budget meetings, Council did give me specific direction to work with the police chief and report back to Council no later than I would say the end of Q2, and regarding the police options for the facility. And there were a number of options, Councillor. In fact, you wrote the motion that includes working with the county. So there's 4 or 5 options. So we are looking at them. In fact, we have a meeting with the police board, police services board on Wednesday. So that will move ahead, and that report will come, and Council will have the opportunity to make a final decision before committing those funds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further questions? Councillor Minaj.
Okay, so I'd like to speak to the same topic as Councillor Myatt, and ask that we scratch around a little bit more and think a little bit differently as well. I asked about the price of the skateboard park, and I believe it was in the neighborhood of $350,000, which is somewhere between 5 and 10% of the value of a new police building. What I'm trying to do is hope that the process, we spoke to using existing lands that we could, again, maybe repurpose. Maybe we could build a new skateboard park. Maybe they're tired of that configuration and would like a different one somewhere. And for that small amount of money, maybe we could keep the police services building, either expansion or new build, on currently purposed municipal property so that we don't lose the potential revenues from selling another piece of the business park to ourselves. So what I asked, I think, before is some of those numbers, lost property assessment numbers if we take up a new piece of the business park. So I'd like to, when you do the exploration, when you go into the Police Services Board, I'd like to see the report dig in a little deeper and show us those partnership opportunities and are we going, how much are we going to lose, and how much would we realize, could we realize on leasing the existing police building, or do you have another plan? Is it another municipal expansion plan? So those things, all encompassing, so that we can have that valued discussion, is what I'm looking for. So that would be the first one, Mr. Mayor. The second one is, and I did speak to our CAO David about this, and that is every year we ask BDO to come in and do an audit assessment of how we're doing financially, and BDO, through Mike Bolton, often puts down a number of itemized pieces of information and says, you should probably look at this, you haven't done anything here for a few years, you may have overextended here, you're doing well there. And I often felt, and I've brought this up before, that there's an opportunity for us to respond as a municipality and a finance department. And to that end, I'm hoping that we can get some response to our budgetary plans and our future financial plans in keeping with how we're being audited. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments? If not, then I'll call the question. All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed, if any? That carries. Next item on the agenda is a general government staff report, and it has to do with Eckford Avenue road closure and sale of land adjacent to 430 Eckford Avenue, and I believe our clerk, Linda White, will present it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The town of Saugeen Shores received an application for the acquisition of the unopened section of the Eckford Avenue road allowance from Michael McMillan, who is the owner of 430 Eckford Avenue. Prior to selling the land, the town is required to complete the declaration of surplus land and road closing processes in accordance with the established procedures. The applicant has provided $5,000 deposit toward the completion of the road closing process and purchase of the land. The applicant is responsible for all associated costs, including the advertising, surveying, legal fees, land transfer tax, and purchase price of the land. Based on the 2014 appraisal, the land is valued at $3 a square foot. The estimated value of the sale of the land is approximately $15,000.
Thank you. Then the recommendation is that council declares surplus to the municipality's needs and gives notice of the council's intention to pass a bylaw to close and sell the unopened section of Eckford Avenue located at 430 Eckford Avenue. Any questions or comments? If not, then all in favor of the recommendation? That's carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is communications for or petitions for committee of the whole information, and I believe there's 5 items there. Any comments to them? Deputy Mayor Charbonneau, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You'll note on there item 3, which is a letter written by me from the Saugeen Shores Police Services Board. It's on here this evening as I had expected to be meeting with the parliamentary assistant to the minister through the day today, but they saw fit to cancel that meeting. I hope it wasn't because of the content of the letter, but there's a concerning situation brewing, as you might have seen here, with some of the grant money, which we've just included in our 2017 budget as part of the Police Services Board budget, or part of the Police Services budget. The ministry is repurposing some of the grants, 2 of the grants in there that we receive, the 1,000 officer grants, 1,000 officers grant, and the community partnership policing grant. They're repurposing that. They're creating this new grant called the Policing Effectiveness and Modernization Grant. They've given us until the end of February to completely change what we're doing with $55,000 of the budget and submit an application now in order to receive that money. That money was granted automatically for the last many years. So that's a situation that you should be aware of. Obviously, the board is very concerned about this, and we're pressing the ministry to allow us to continue to receive the money for this year on the previous terms and to work with us to implement their new plan for coming years. But I think that this is a clear shot across the bow. Even if we do get the funding in 2017, that funding will be scaled back in years to come. I'm quite convinced of that. And so council, I think council should not be too concerned about the 2017 revenues to the police service, but I think going forward, 2018 and beyond, should be prepared to lose even more of the provincial funding towards policing than we have lost to date. And so that's an update on that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further, Vice Deputy Mayor Huber?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a question. One of the communications indicates that once again we've been unsuccessful with a grant application. I just was curious to know, to be reminded of what our application was for funding to the Trillium Foundation this time.
Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't say that in the letter, but this was the $500,000 request that we had indicated for the replacement of the floor and the boards and the dehumidification for the Coliseum.
Good.
So as a follow-up then, we've just approved the budget which had that in there. So how does this come back again as a question?
So the request through budget for $500,000 will go into a reserve, and staff will approach council again in 2018 through the budget process requesting for additional funds.
Okay. Other questions? So, then the next item on the agenda is our two information reports. The first is to do with the Purdog Main Beach break wall. It's there. I don't think you need to read it. Jane, if there's any questions to it, we'll take those. Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So always, I think I tried to look for other options as well, and having studied this for some time, I wondered if we could also ask about wooden boardwalk placements over the damaged areas, and would that be considered a safety improvement? So right now I'm hearing that we might the two options that are given are either fence it off or recrib it and reconcrete it, but maybe there's a third option, and maybe I could ask that it be looked into.
I'm sure we can look at that. Okay, Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is one where I wonder if council could get a little bit aggressive with the federal government. If we could at least send them a letter and say this is their infrastructure. They're letting it wash into the lake. I mean, they own it, and it's crumbling. It's falling to pieces, and has been forever. I think at minimum we could send them a letter and say, hey guys, guess what? Maybe you want to come take a look at this and fix this thing that's fallen apart and is a liability to the community. I think that, I don't think it's too much to ask, in my view. So I think my suggestion would be that we should identify this, the council should identify this as an area of concern, and that we should ask them to repair it. And then they can tell us no, I guess, but I think we should at least make the request as a council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think there's no harm in that at all anytime, and I think, if we do any communication with the federal government, we should also copy our local member, Councillor Minaj, and then I'll go to Councillor Grace.
Okay, so this is Port Elgin Marine Heritage history, and maybe we should really dig into it. Maybe that's an opportunity for me on the committee, on the Heritage Committee. But I believe buried deep in the word somewhere is that the DFO thinks that this is not their responsibility, so that may be something we have to look into. But clearly, this is more than just a pedestrian walkway, or when I was a teenager, a jumping off point for enjoyment at the end of the break wall. This is also what's holding that water, that shallow, safe water for young families to use. If that break wall ends up falling apart, then we have a safety issue, and we don't have as an attractive beach as we have today. So I concur that something else should be happening here. Thank you.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When was the last time that I guess the question is for Jane. When did we last approach the Department of Fisheries to find out if, to try to negotiate some contribution on their part?
I can tell you we started about 1.5 years ago, and as recently as this afternoon, we continue our conversations.
Councillor Dave Mayotte.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, notwithstanding what we just heard, which I agree that the federal government owns this and should take responsibility for it, but and also looking at the pictures, and certainly aesthetically, one could look at those pictures and say that's a deplorable condition, and deplorable might be a good word for that. But as far as the holes creating tripping hazards and things like that, anybody who ventures to the shoreline, whether it's on a concrete walkway or on a rocky beach, or whether it's a trail, a woodland trail, you're going to encounter uneven surfaces, and that's something that needs to be expected. And all I'm saying is, I would be very, very remiss to support any closure of this facility. Not only is it something that the kids jump off of and it retains the sand and the beach, it's also a very important spot for local fishermen to go, myself included. That's any day of any morning of the week during the summertime, and certainly right until ice up, you can see fishermen using that pier. And to close that off, I think you're taking away a significant recreational aspect of the community. So we need to find a way to shore it up, and whether a wooden deck or whether patchwork concrete or complete rebuild is required. But closing it off would be something that I would never ever support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions to that report? We have one further one, then. It's to do with the Nuclear Industry Investment Strategy Update. And I know our CIO, you want to speak to it. If there's any questions of him, the report speaks for itself, I think. we're... Go ahead, Councillor Mike.
One question I have through you to our CIO, or perhaps discussion around the table, is that, one of the comment, the Saugeen Shores context at the end says, although the initiative is gaining momentum, it's a lack of office space, warehousing, manufacturing space in Saugeen Shores is a problem in our community. And I know in our business park, I think there are 4 lots left. 2, I think, or maybe 4, earmarked for a potentially new police building. I don't know whether it's 2 or 4. But I'm just wondering, with warehousing, manufacturing space, at some point, whether it's part of our strategic planning or discussion around the table here tonight or another night, but should we at some point, Mr. Mayor, be taking a look at, purchasing additional properties for our new business park? And we've talked about this probably over the years, but it is filling up. You have those, those small manufacturing jobs with 3, 6, 9, 12 employees, need a place to go, and it's nice to have in the business park space for those small businesses to operate out of. Are we just leaving this up to the private entrepreneur to come in and find their own land and rezone a piece of land that's planned development now and rezone it to industrial? So should we, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO, as his question for me, should we be at some point taking a look at additional business park lands, because we are filling up, correct?
Well, yeah, we don't have a lot available. You're correct there, Mike. I think that's a discussion we could have. I think there's a number of options you can do it, whether the town needs to buy it or whether we pre-zone or whether you look at our existing, planning procedures to see how we would expedite any application like that to ensure them. I think we would, and I think David can speak to this too, because I know the committee is investigating a lot of those options to see which would best fit. So.
Thanks for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to emphasize one of the councillor's words. You said this is a problem that we have. In many communities, this would be described as not a problem, because it means that we don't have empty businesses and empty warehouses and empty manufacturing facilities. So there is good in having this problem, and I know that you appreciate that. One of the things that we're hoping is, or not hoping, one of the things that we're expecting is our economic development staff person, our community development officer, will work with our local economic development community to make sure that we are development ready. There are a number of strategies that we can follow. One is municipally owned land or acting as part of the developer that role. Another one is, and it's recommended in the report, or it's an update in the report, is we are going to be having a session with local developers to talk to them about opportunities. We've already met with our development staff, and Bart is leading that, about how do we help guide applications that come in, how do we make them come to the top, as the mayor mentioned. When applications come to the planning committee, we're going to start to highlight ones that fit the needs that we expect will come. So there's a lot of different initiatives that are happening to support this, and I know that we'll be successful.
Sure.
Question to David then. David, so at your first meeting with the, you talked about your Bruce Power Suppliers Day, and with the multi-billion-dollar investment about to hit the pavement, it started at Bruce Power. In 2010, it's going to be in high gear. Are you finding, I know you've had only one meeting, maybe two, but do you see us being hand-tied in terms of, having the ability to attract those manufacturing businesses, for example, small business or manufacturing business where they need 50,000 square feet, for example? Are you finding early in the game that are we hand-tied? You mentioned that it's not really a negative. I agree with your business park being filled up as a positive. All I was alluding to was the fact that you see yourselves being hand-tied with not having available lands for future development was really what I was driving at. So are you at your first meeting, and after taking inventory of what we have on hand, you think it's going to be a problem?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so there's a couple of questions there, and I would comment that I don't think we're being hamstrung or hand-tied now, but I think coming up very soon, if we don't have opportunities, they will go to other communities. There are other communities that have vacancies, they're ready, and that's because they're not in the enviable situation that we've been in. So some of those early wins, I suspect, will end up in those communities. Having said that, as an example, Hatch is a very large engineering company. They have located in Port Elgin on our main street there. So, and that's a direct result of the work that they'll be doing at Bruce Power. So it's not that we're not going to have any change or any positive. It's just if we want to fully maximize the opportunity, I think we need to start and continue to work towards that. And just finally, I think through council support, because you did support the community development officer, that role, council had the foresight to say this is an important role in our community. We're going to fund that position, and it's going to reap benefits for our community.
Mr.
Mayor. That's the end of our agenda then, and so we'll take a motion to adjourn. Councillor Madison, Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. All in favor, we're adjourned.